The classroom smelled like chalk dust and something the humans called pizza day, and I still could not decide if either was pleasant. I was 3 weeks into my exchange placement at Lincoln High School, a small building of brick and glass in a town whose name I still mispronounced. My translator implant handled most of the words for me, but it could not explain why humans laughed at things that were not funny, or why they called Earth home with such warmth when the Galactic Registry listed it as a Class 4 Deathworld, crushing gravity variance, unstable weather, predator density higher than 90% of cataloged worlds. My handlers had prepared me for danger behind every tree and under every ocean wave. Instead, I found notebooks with cartoon animals drawn in the margins, and a girl named Mira who sat in the back row and rarely said a word. She was, by every measure I had been trained to notice, the least remarkable person in the room. Brown hair pulled into a simple ponytail, a backpack with a small tear at the corner, patched with tape. She answered questions only when the teacher called on her directly, and even then, quietly, like she was worried about taking up too much space. If the registry had asked me to point to the safest, most ordinary human in the building, I would have pointed at her without hesitation. I was wrong, though I did not know it yet. The first thing I noticed, in my second week, was small enough that I almost dismissed it. We were in a science class, and a heavy textbook slipped off a shelf above Mira's head. I saw it fall. I opened my mouth to shout a warning, the way my culture teaches, loud and immediate. But before any sound left me, Mira's hand had already risen and caught the book an inch from her scalp, without even turning to look. She set it down on her desk, apologized to the teacher for the noise, and went back to her notes. No one else in the room seemed to think this was strange. A boy nearby laughed and said, "Nice reflexes." And Mira just shrugged and murmured something about playing a lot of ping pong as a kid. The class moved on. I did not. I began watching her more closely after that, though I told myself it was simple curiosity, the kind any researcher might feel toward an unusual specimen. I noted that she never jumped at loud noises, not even the fire alarm bell that made 3 of my alien colleagues cover their ears in distress. I noted that during a thunderstorm, when half the classroom flinched at each crack of lightning, Mira only glanced toward the window once, calm as still water, and returned to her drawing. I noted that she moved through crowded hallways the way water moves around rocks, never bumping into anyone, never being bumped into either, as if some part of her mind was mapping the room before her body caught up. Small things, quiet things, the kind of details a human researcher might miss entirely, but which stood out to me like flares in the dark, because on my world, such stillness in the face of danger belonged only to trained hunters and old soldiers. I asked her about it once, carefully, over lunch. We had begun sitting together most days, mostly in comfortable silence, sometimes trading a few words about homework or the strange cafeteria food. I asked her if she had always been so calm during storms. She considered the question longer than I expected. "I guess I don't really get scared of loud stuff," she said. "My mom says I was like that even as a baby. Everyone else in my family jumps at everything. I don't know. I just don't." She said it simply, without pride, as if it were an inconvenient trait rather than a gift, like being colorblind or ambidextrous. She did not know it was strange. She had never had a reason to think it was strange. This detail alone unsettled me more than anything else. On my world, such abilities were earned through years of training, or bred through careful selection. Mira had simply been born, grown up watching cartoons and eating cereal, and somewhere in that ordinary childhood, something in her had been built for a death world. I did not have long to wonder before I saw the rest of it. It happened on a Tuesday, during the school's outdoor sports period, the kind of gray afternoon where the whole class gathered on the field to run laps and complain about running laps. I was standing near the fence with my alien classmate Tovik, both of us watching humans jog past with an anthropologist's mixture of confusion and fascination, when the incident occurred. A transport vehicle carrying supplies for the school's science fair had been parked near the edge of the field. Something in its cooling system failed, and within moments, smoke began pouring from beneath the vehicle, thick and gray, curling upward into the overcast sky. Someone screamed. Students scattered in every direction, the way flocks of birds scatter when a hawk passes overhead, chaotic and instinctive. I felt my own body freeze, caught between training and unfamiliar terrain. I did not know human emergency protocols. I did not know where the exits were. My mind, usually so quick, stumbled over itself. Mira did not stumble. I saw her turn toward the smoke instead of away from it, her expression settling into something I had never seen on her face before. Not fear, not excitement, just clear, focused attention, like a switch had been thrown somewhere deep inside her. She moved fast, faster than I thought a human body could move without enhancement, weaving between panicked classmates with the same easy grace she used in crowded hallways. She reached the vehicle before any teacher did. She did not do anything reckless. She was not foolish. She simply assessed, the way I imagine a soldier assesses a battlefield, and acted with unnerving precision. She found the release lever for the vehicle's supply hatch, wrenched it open, and began pulling out the boxes stored near the smoking engine, one after another, moving them to safety in case the smoke turned to something worse. She shouted clear directions to two younger students who had frozen near the vehicle, her voice calm but absolutely certain, cutting through the panic like a blade through fog. "Move to the fence, now, both of you, go." They obeyed instantly. I understood why. There are voices that ask, and there are voices that simply expect to be followed, and in that moment, Mira's voice belonged to the second kind. Within perhaps 90 seconds, the school's maintenance staff arrived with proper equipment. The smoke was contained, and it turned out to be a minor mechanical fault, nothing more dangerous than a burnt wire and an overheated coolant line. No fire, no explosion, only smoke and startled nerves. But I had seen enough. I had seen the moment Mira stopped being an ordinary girl and became something else entirely, something with quick hands and clear eyes and the calm of a creature built for crisis. And then, just as quickly, I watched her fold that version of herself away again, like tucking a knife back into its sheath. By the time the teachers reached her, she was simply a slightly out-of-breath teenager, brushing ash from her sleeve, saying something about how she used to help her uncle with car troubles. The other students barely reacted to what she had done. A few clapped her on the back and called her cool under pressure. One teacher thanked her for helping the younger kids and mentioned it might look good on a college application. Within an hour, the incident was already becoming a funny story to tell at dinner. Something about smoke and a broken cooling line, not something about a girl who had moved like a trained operative and given orders like a commander twice her age. They did not see what I saw. They could not see it, because they had grown up surrounded by such quiet capability their whole lives, until it no longer looked remarkable to them at all. It was simply Mira being helpful. It was simply a human doing what humans do. I sat with Tovik afterward, both of us shaken in ways we struggled to explain to each other. Tovik kept repeating that her hands had not trembled, not once, even while pulling supplies from a smoking vehicle. I kept thinking about her voice, the calm certainty of it, and how easily the two younger students had obeyed a girl they barely knew. That evening, I filed a report to my research supervisors, describing what I had witnessed. I tried to explain that this Deathworld did not simply produce dangerous predators in its oceans and forests, as the registry warned. It produced them in its classrooms too, wrapped in backpacks and ponytails and quiet smiles, walking among their own kind, completely unaware of what they were. My supervisors replied with polite interest, and a note to continue monitoring, as if I had reported an unusual weather pattern rather than uncovered something that unsettled me to my core. I saw Mira again the next day, back in her usual seat, doodling small birds in the margin of her notebook, as if nothing at all had happened. She noticed me watching, and gave a small, embarrassed smile. "Sorry about yesterday," she said. "Bet that looked kind of chaotic. We don't usually have smoking trucks on the field." I told her, honestly, that I had never seen anything like it. She laughed, misunderstanding me completely, thinking I meant the smoke, the noise, the drama of it all. "Yeah, it was pretty wild. I just kind of went on autopilot. My brain does that sometimes when things get intense. Probably not very interesting to hear about." I wanted to tell her that it was the most interesting thing I had witnessed since arriving on her planet. I wanted to tell her that somewhere inside her ordinary body lived reflexes built for a world that ate the unprepared alive, that her calm was not luck or coincidence, but the mark of something ancient and fierce, worn so lightly she did not even recognize it in herself. I wanted to tell her that, on 100 other worlds, what she had done without thinking would be studied, trained, worshipped as a warrior's gift. Instead, I only said, "You did well. Everyone was glad you were there." She smiled again, this time without embarrassment, just warmth, simple and genuine. "Thanks. That's nice of you to say." We returned to our notebooks. Around us, the classroom buzzed with ordinary human noise, laughter, pencils scratching, someone complaining about homework. Nothing about the room suggested that danger had visited it only a day before, or that it had been handled so completely, so quietly, by a girl who thought of herself as nothing special. I understood, sitting there, that I had learned something my supervisors would take a very long time to accept. Earth's greatest predators did not always announce themselves with claws or teeth. Sometimes they wore school uniforms and worried about test scores. Sometimes they sat quietly in the back of a classroom, drawing birds in notebook margins, kind and shy, and utterly unaware that beneath their ordinary smiles lived the calm, sharp readiness of a world that had never once made survival easy. Mira caught me staring again, and tilted her head, curious. "You okay? You've got that weird, thoughtful look again." I smiled, the way I had learned smiles worked among humans, warm and reassuring. "Just thinking," I told her. "You are a very interesting person, Mira." She laughed softly, already turning back to her notebook. "That's the nicest weird thing anyone said to me all week." I said nothing more. I only watched her draw, gentle and unaware, a Deathworld's quiet miracle, hidden in plain sight among ordinary desks and half-finished homework. And I thought that of all the mysteries in this galaxy, humans might remain the strangest and most wonderful one I would ever study.